I just want to introduce myself. My name is Glenn Andrew. I'm a stress analyst here at Structures.aero, and I'm going to be taking y'all through the new features of Femap version 2020.2. So I'll go through a little bit about our company if you're new, and then go through new functionality and updates, all the things that that are new for this software release, and then I'll go through a couple demonstrations on some of the things that I think are important and that'll provide the most value for everyday Femap users. So we as a company, Structures.aero, we're about 15 engineers, various levels of education, but primarily engineers with bachelor's degrees in aerospace, mechanical, and engineering, science, and mechanics backgrounds. We're all experts in Femap, and we use Femap and Nastran every day. That's like our core competency. So some recent projects that we've provided engineering support are mainly in the space, aircraft, and UAV industries. Currently, we're working with Sierra Nevada on the Dream Chaser, Blue Origin on New Glenn. We have a couple engineers working on the Roman telescope for NASA Goddard, which if you're not familiar with that, I think it was just renamed. It was previously the W1st. And then I think we just finished up a contract with Boom Supersonic, which that demonstrator is going to fly within the year. And then we do a lot of work on UAVs as well. And then some industrial work if customers come and say they need help. So a lot of experience in the space, aircraft, and UAV industries. We're also a Siemens value-added reseller, so we sell a software that we use every day. Primarily that's Femap and NX Nastran. We're definitely experts in those areas. And then we have some specialized engineers who have experience in the various other softwares such as NX, SimCenter 3D, Star CCM. We also offer training. Typically this training is offered in our office or at a customer's office site. But due to COVID right now, we're not able to provide that in-person training. But we are actually evaluating whether there's enough interest for an online training class. So if anyone or any company is interested, just reach out to our company and we may be able to put together an online training class for those that are interested. So in addition to selling the software, we also support our customers who are using it. And if any questions come up, if we don't know the answer, which sometimes happens, but for the most part, not really, we go direct to the writers. We have a good relationship with the Femap team, so we're able to provide quick answers to most problems. All right, so now we'll dig into the meat of this upgrade. If you're not familiar with the update release cadence, basically there's a new feature release every 6 months that includes UI and visualization updates, API updates, meshing updates, and then in between those 6 months, they'll fix bugs and that type of thing. But you can expect new features every 6 months, basically. All right, so first things first, there's actually a decent amount of performance improvements in this new version, unlike in 2020.1, especially for large models, operations and processing can be actually a lot faster. So, they've improved connect automatic command, geometry and mesh, if you're copying, rotating, or reflecting entities, and also moving entities. And then length-based operations on curves have been improved. Processing output has been improved, especially enveloping, linear combination, or assessing output. And then importing Nastran models is up to 2 times faster. Abortable commands are much more faster, and then and creating single entities, for example, one rigid element, and you're selecting nodes, and you've got 6 million nodes visible. That can be a lot faster because they've updated the algorithms, so you can pick entities much faster. Overall, yeah, again, these upgrades are really for large models. So if you got a small model, it may be faster, but it's probably not going to be noticeable just because the time to complete these operations is so small already. All right, so I covered this on the last What's New update, but I think Femap has finally completed, upgrading their vector assets for icons. So now, you don't have all these grainy icons, especially if you have the big icon option checked. So it's easier to get at some of these buttons. But basically, Femap is now aware of high resolution displays, and it just independently scales your interface so that you don't end up with like large icons but still blurry if you're using the native Windows scaling, or if you're not using any scaling at all, you can have like a small icon that's still that's high res. But with the vector assets, Femap is able to scale things on its own so that it's all still high res for those of you with 4K displays or higher resolution displays. Okay, so diving into some of the UI and visualization updates, one of the new big options is to look at curves by connectivity, by their level of connectivity. Basically, if you have a free edge, it's like that surface. That curve has one surface attached. If you have a manifold edge, it's got two surfaces attached, and then if it's non-manifold, it's got three surfaces connected to that curve, and that's something like a T-junction. And you can visualize these. You can override your curve colors and tell, okay, maybe this T intersection isn't really a T intersection. It's not joined there, and you can fix that. And that's especially helpful for tracking down these errors early in the workflow so that when you mesh, you don't realize, oh, my geometry is not connected there. So now I have to go back and fix the geometry and then the mesh. You can fix it earlier upstream in the workflow and then avoid those problems downstream. And then there also is an option to just like check it on and off. And you can actually break this option out into like another button if you want, so that you can just quickly show and hide this to get at this functionality quickly. So here's an example. It looks like this is a flat plate with a bunch of ribs coming off of it. And then once everything's non-manifold added together, you can see there's a couple curves that are yellow, which means that it's a T intersection. This curve shares three surfaces. And then like green edges is a curve that shares two edges. So you can kind of just quickly do a visual check. Is my model connected up the way I think it is, and avoid meshing problems downstream. Okay, another update is they've made some small changes to the renumbering options. Previously, you didn't really have any options to offset to a certain ID or specify how far you should offset from the current IDs. And now when you're renumbering, you do have that option. You can see in 2020.1 versus 2020.2, there's the change. Okay, and new to Femap 2020.2, this upgrade is actually a ton of Excel integration. This is going to make your life a lot easier if you spend a lot of time copying output and then opening up Excel and pasting it in. And it's not only outputting data to Excel, it's also formatting it. So it's organized, it's clean, and it's easy to manipulate. So they've basically baked in this Excel functionality throughout a lot of different like operations. For example, in the data table, in the connection editor, in the mesh point editor, in the function table editor, and the entity editor. Basically, anywhere you see this Excel symbol, it's going to spit this data out to Excel, and it's actually really fast, which surprised me. The slowest part is actually opening up Excel. So if you have it already open, it's just like, it's really snappy. Just basically, it's in Excel before you know it. Okay, there's also integration with the layout editor and the standard entity selection. So You know, previously, if you wanted this layup data, you'd have to copy it and then open up Excel, paste it in, and now it'll just shoot it straight into Excel for you. Same with the standard entity selection. Like if you want to save a certain amount of, nodes or elements off to Excel, you can just send it to Excel instead of going through the normal process. Okay, in the same vein, if you do a lot of charting, now you can chart something in Femap and then send it to Excel, and it will keep the XY data pairs and also copy an image of your chart. So this is really useful if you're trying to just export a ton of stuff for like a report or something. You can send all your charts to Excel and then copy the picture that way, and you don't have to take a bunch of screenshots. Yeah, there's a picture of the data in Excel and then, the picture of the chart. Okay, some miscellaneous upgrades to UI and visualization. The equation editor box you can now resize, and they've also grouped similar function items together, so it's just a little bit more easy to interact with. And they've added another function, element thickness, where you can pull the element ID and the corner ID, and then it returns the planar element corner thickness. Some more updates for the, like if you're trying to find the center of the center of like an arc or a circle, I think previously you had to either like select the center and measure, or create a point at the center of the circle. And now you can just, if you have the advanced option enabled, it will automatically just list the center of your arc or circle if it is an arc or a circle. And then also they've improved the model merge command to more cleanly handle cases where you're trying to like overwrite entities in the current model. I've investigated this. I don't think it's a change to the front end, but it must be something in the back end because it doesn't look any different from 2020.1 to .2. All right. I think wrapping up the UI and visualization updates, I think in the past, you can't select a command on a floating toolbar when you're using another command, but now I think you'll be able to like select your floating command on the toolbar while using another command. So that's probably just a bug or some backend software update that they did. And then they've also added a couple group display commands, which I actually think will be pretty helpful. You can now show the full model, show the active group, show multiple groups. So this is useful, for example, if you have a large model tree and you have to scroll back down to your groups and then right-click it to show like full model or active group. That can be, kind of tedious if you have to do that a bunch. So, they've just made it a button and you can just click it. And it's also mappable to keyboard shortcuts. And I'll go through a demo that shows how to get these onto your like navigation pane, and then also how to use them. Okay, yeah, so moving on to pre-processing, this is actually a pretty important update that they've included. If you're evaluating the mass properties of your solid, they've added support for multiple solids for one, support for copying the listing to the clipboard, sorry, and also updating the listing format so it's similar to, tools, mass properties, mesh properties. But the thing that I think is the biggest update is that you can now basically defeature a model with this command. So, these are the new options in the red box. You can create a node at the center of gravity of the solid. It'll create a representative mass element, and then it'll link it to your mesh with a rigid or multi-element connection. So like, for example, if you have a bunch of valves, pumps, avionics, or systems components that you don't really want to, structurally model, you can replace these fairly easily with, a mass element and a rigid. So you can, accurately represent the inertia and the mass distribution of the vehicle without modeling all this extraneous detail that's going to drive your runtimes up. So it's an easy way to strip out non-structural geometry and add a connected mass element in this place. So on the Femap side, Femap now has the ability to interact with Nastran follower forces. So you can define a follower force and a follower moment, and define a direction. And it's really useful in nonlinear analysis when you have a large deflection and you want your force to follow the deflection of your structure. So now it'll follow the vector of your nodes as your nodes deform and move and rotate. So you can define follower force, follower moments, and then also both nodal and geometric follower loads. So in the meshing toolbox, I think in 2020.1, they overhauled the blend removal so that it's much more able to remove, complex blends. Now you can actually edit which blends it's about to remove. So like if you have two blends that are of the same radius, you can't really limit the size and get rid of one but not the other. So now you can add or remove specific blends and preview which ones are about to be removed. Okay, so another feature in the meshing toolbox under the extend operation is the ability to surface replace face. This is really useful if your blend removal fails. It's another way you can get the blend out of there and continue defeaturing. So basically, you can extend faces of a solid up to a selected surface. Yeah, remove blends that have failed, raise or retract surfaces to the main solid to remove like features such as like a boss or something. And then the existing commands are packaged under curve on surface. And I'll go through a demo that shows an example of this. But basically, if you can see my mouse, this blend may have failed removal. So now you're kind of stuck, like I really want to get rid of this blend, but blend removal is failing. So with a surface replace face, you can select the surface that you extend to and then select the blend, and it basically projects it like squeezes the blend down onto like this one flat surface and gets rid of it. So yeah, just another way to get rid of detail, especially if the blend fails. Okay, so in terms of post-processing, there's also a bunch of Excel integration here. Specifically, you can directly send results to Excel instead of, listing to data table and copying. So it automatically opens Excel, transfers the results really quickly, and it takes advantage of, row and column control, your formatting style, that type of thing. I don't think this is new to 2020.2, but you can also, in between these steps, you can transform your results, which is something I learned recently, and that's been really helpful for me. If you're trying to transform results, especially into like your material direction. So if you enable formatting, there's a lot of things that it'll do automatically when you import these results into Excel. So it'll automatically apply a column filter. It'll freeze the row and the ID, the row heading and the ID column, and it'll automatically organize your results into nodes and elements. So it's doing a lot of work for you, and it's making it clear, concise. I think this is a big upgrade, and I'm actually looking forward to see what other Excel integrations they put out in the next few updates. Okay, so for any users using the static aeroelasticity model or solution, I know us at Structures.aero, we've been kind of frustrated that you can't visualize the forces you're applying to the model very easily. When I'm trying to look at like, okay, how much load am I applying in this specific aeroelastic load case, I have to go into the FO6 file and extract out aero panel forces. And in 2020.1, they added the monitor point capability, but it's still only being output in the FO6, so you have to go check the FO6. Now you can actually import FO6 data into Femap as results and view your aero pressures, your aero coefficients, and your aero forces on those panels. I haven't figured out, and I don't think you can do this, but I don't think you can operate on the data that's on these panels yet. I don't think you can select and list like the aero panel forces yet. So that's probably something that's going to come in a later update, I hope. And I have a demo where I'll run through how to do that. Okay, so from the Nastran side, Nastran also you can also define these follower forces So the solver support has been updated so that I think when you import from Nastran like a DAT file, your Femap will automatically recognize a force if it's a following force. And again, these are usually used for like large deflections where the change in angle of your force really does influence the solution. Okay, getting into some of the API functionality. API developers can now control multiple Femap sessions simultaneously. This is a pretty big update because I think in the past, like I've had to close a bunch of Femap sessions and only have the one that I'm interested in running the API on, or else sometimes it'll get confused and run on the wrong file, or, you know, if it just, I think it depends on which one's active or which one you've opened first. Additionally, you can control multiple Femap sessions simultaneously from Excel. So that's helpful if you have a bunch of Excel, macros. You can choose which one you want to run your API on. It's forward compatible, and basically this is like the dialog that pops up, and you can click which instance to run your macro on. Okay, in terms of new tools, now that you can, operate on multiple Femap instances, it makes sense that now you can merge between multiple Femap instances. So they've added the merge tool object. It's similar to the copy tool or the move tool, and it basically exposes everything that was in the file merge command in the GUI. So you can select from model by name, you can toggle individual groups of entities, add related, add associated, and then they do have a note here. You can create patterns of merged entities, which it doesn't look like that's an option in the UI, but that's something that could probably be helpful, and that's probably in the release notes if anyone's interested. Yeah, and here's a quick example of the merge tool. All right, so now I'm going to jump into a couple demonstrations, and then we'll get on to some questions. Okay, so for the first demonstration, basically I'm going to show how to use this new group functionality. I think, yeah, so let's say you have two groups. I've got a simple model here, just a plate with a hole in it. I've got the nodes kind of in the far field, the far field elements, and then the elements near the hole. I think that's reversed, but I think you get the idea. You can switch between showing the full model and showing your active group very quickly. Like if you have a big model tree and like all this stuff is kind of buried down, then you have to scroll back and forth. It's very helpful, so you don't have to go back and forth between that. If you want to be able to customize this, if you're not familiar with how to do that, you can go to Customize, Commands, and yeah, it's a right-click, Customize, then go to Commands here. And these grouping commands are listed under Additional Commands down here. Show full model, show active group, show multiple groups. And you just drag and drop, and that's how you can customize. Okay. So if anyone's interested in how you import like aeroelastic solutions from the FO6 file, here I've got a pretty simple aeroelastic model. It's a main wing, a horizontal stabilizer, and a vertical stabilizer with control surfaces. And I've got an FO6 already prepared. And the way you import this is you go to File, Import, Femap Analysis Results. And then you just go with the default settings, hit OK, and then it'll let you select FO6, OP2, XDB. I want to import from the FO6 because that's where my aeroelastic results are located. And it'll read it for you. And then if you go to post-processing, you can select that case, and it gives you pressures, coefficients, forces, and moments. So I can plot these here. And here it's showing me, and you can like show the individual values. That type of thing. So, I was really hoping for the ability to actually operate on this data and sum it up across these panels, but I don't think that's in here yet. And it is important to be aware that, the sign of your force is defined by the order in which your arrow panel is defined by the four corners. So you can see there's a positive force on this side and a negative force, and that's just due to how the arrow panels are defined. So you have to be careful when you're summing forces that way. All right, I wanted to show you some of the Excel integration. So if we go here, and let's say I want to edit this laminate, I can go to Modify, Edit, Layup. And I'm looking at my layup. It's got 4 layers. Here's the Excel button. Let's say I want to send to Excel. It's taking a second because I think it's opening Excel. And then here is what I get out of that. So really helpful if you're trying to take this data into like a CLT calculator. I can just copy the angles and paste it in, or the thickness or the materials, that type of thing. Not super helpful for this example, but when you have to do this a lot of times, or if your layup is super thick, that's really when it becomes helpful. I can also list output to the data table, but I can also list results straight to Excel. So it kind of cuts one of those steps. So let's say I want some results. I want my forces. And then let's say I want these elements right at the corner. Looks like it's starting up Excel, and then here's my data. And then you can mess around with like the order of the columns and that type of thing to get it suited for what you're trying to do, but it's already there. So that shows you some of the power of the Excel integration. This is a really simple blend, so the blend removal is it'll be fine here. But let's say the blend removal fails on this. The way you surface replace face is you go to Geometry, Editing, Extend, Surface Replace Face. We're going to try to remove this blend without our blend removal operation. So you actually select the face you're projecting down to. So it would be this one. And then you can select the blend. And actually, I'm going to select all these. And it just replaces the face. So yeah, super useful if your blend fails and you're really out of options. Okay, I think that's about all I have for today. So thank you guys very much for tuning in. We'll probably do another one whenever the next feature release of Femap comes out. So yeah, in the meantime, if you have any questions, shoot me an email at gandrew@structures.aero, or if you have any questions about pricing or would like to see a demo or are interested in an online training class that we can put together, yeah, email Keith or give him a call. He's our director of sales, and he'll be able to help you guys out. That's all I have today, so appreciate it, and I hope everyone has a good day.